Good afternoon. This is Trainbow at the California ISO. Thank you for joining us for the Application Delivery Resiliency Forum on January 31, 2024. This call is being recorded and will be published on the release planning page for a limited time. And participants are muted upon entry, so you may need to unmute yourself via the WebEx as well as your audio line to make a verbal comment or ask a verbal question. And also send a message in the chat and I will address those along the way as well. Okay. All right, so let's go ahead and get started. So this is the agenda that we had since the kickoff last week. I won't spend a lot of time on the details that we've already covered, but they remain here for your reference, and you can always listen to last week's recording for any thing that we covered then. Okay. So on the overview slide, what I added here was the meeting link and then also the location of the presentations and recordings. So for today's meeting, the presentation and recording will be published after the meeting, so by tomorrow, if not today. And then in the future, I will try to have the presentations posted prior to the meeting so that you can review that ahead of time. Okay. All right. We do have these meetings on the calendar through the middle of February, and if needed, I will extend these to continue to support this transition. All right. So let's go over the timeline quickly. For the UI, everything is available except for TR. And then the old URLs are targeted to be decommissioned next week on February 6th. And you can stay tuned to additional email notices for confirmation of that. For the API, all the new URLs are available. And the old URLs were scheduled to be cut over February 19th. I set that back to TBD right now just because we are aware of open city cases that we want to make sure we work through to resolve and combine our efforts with our customers to get through those and understand the efforts that are needed on both sides to transition successfully. So that date is TBD right now. And then continuing on to the status and the timeline, this is a detailed view of what is available as well as our actions. So even though the API cutover is TBD, we still strongly encourage all customers to be using the new UI and the new API as soon as possible. Of course, if you're having issues with the API, you can continue to cut back and use the old ones for now so that we don't impact your production operations. But if you have not tried cutting over to the new production API URLs, we do insist that you try as soon as possible so that you can report any issues to us. Okay. I think I kind of covered the recommendations again of using the new URLs as soon as possible and reporting any issues. And then I provided this guidance before about what information to provide if you are experiencing issues. So one thing I wanted to call out here also is that for those that have API issues, for your response files, we are requesting that you provide the full response files when possible. We're getting a lot of really great information in our city cases and from our customers about the errors. And we're seeing that it would be helpful if we could have the full files instead of some of these ones that may be truncated. So I wanted to add that adjustment there. And then we can go on to the meat of the presentation. So for the UIs, as I mentioned, all are available except for TR, which is going to be made available when we upgrade the TR system. That's planned for later in February. There are no known issues on the UI to report, but we'll continue to monitor cities, and then if anything arises that we need to communicate to those that are impacted by the UIs, then we will do so. Okay. Again, no issues to report for the UIs at this point. Does anybody have any questions specific to the UI URLs or cutover? All right, I don't see any hands raised, nothing in the chat. So I expect that we'll spend a lot more time on the APIs right now, just due to the effort to cut over there. So just to reiterate, this is what's available on the green, the new APIs that we would like customers to cut over fully as soon as possible, but if not, then just to at least try those. And if you are experiencing issues, to let us know. Cutover is TBD, and then we are continuously reviewing city cases to address those. And I wanted to spend this time to go over the categories of issues that we are seeing in city cases. So if you do have a city case that is not listed on here, if you could send them privately to me in the chat, I will incorporate those as well. But this is what we have that were raised on the call recently, or that we've been working with customers on, that are categorized into a couple major areas that I wanted to cover with this team here. Okay, so for the API, we are seeing intermittent connection resets on the new URLs. So, so what we're seeing is that with the same requests on the old API, those are failing against the new API, and users are experiencing a connection reset. So there are a few different areas that we are investigating further for this. So potential causes are file size, where larger files are failing on the new URL, but succeeding on the old URL. And we are seeing that there is success on the new URL with smaller sizes. We also have a report of a customer's vendor reporting that some call or requests to OMS specifically, over 8,000 characters is failing on the new URL, where it's succeeding on the old. So those two are kind of grouped together for file size and then the number of characters. And then the other item is chunked versus streamed data. So we are seeing in some cases where chunked data is going through successfully on the old URLs, but not the new ones. And so we're working on for those users that are reporting that to confirm the configuration, as well as we'd like to work with those customers to adjust the configuration if possible and retest. So those are kind of, that's all one area and a few different things, theories that we're exploring with our customers. So what's happening behind the scenes that you're not seeing here is that we have some of our customers' vendors or our customers directly that that we're working with to test in map stage these different theories. And we are also working with customers to provide more information where possible too. And so we're doing that by having the customers test, providing us additional forensic data to review. And then we are also continuing to set up working sessions with our customers to get more information, and then see if there are any changes that we can make on our infrastructure in the map stage environment to kind of explore these theories a little bit more. So you can see that there are several cities that are related to this, and we're addressing those with the individual submitters. And again, if I've missed some, please send them in the chat to me. So on that, does anybody have questions about that details or information that you want to share here to this group? You may be on mute via the WebEx. You can also raise your hand or putting a message in the chat. Okay, Dan, please go ahead. Yes.
Size issue. Are you guys?
I'm sorry?
Can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you. Yep.
On the file size issue, are you guys continuing to look at, like, are you seeing what the problem might be yet, or you're still doing some analysis?
Yeah, so on the size, what we are doing is we're getting additional detail from the customers about what specific error message they're receiving from our system. And And then once we have that information, we want to correlate that with errors that we're seeing on our side to see if there's additional information in our logs that correspond with whatever errors are being received on the customer side that for these large file sizes. So that's one thing that we hadn't been able to fully reconcile yet, was that customers were receiving some errors, but we weren't seeing the traffic on our side necessarily, so we couldn't look deeper to see what might have been causing that. So so the next step that we're taking is, again, working with some specific customers that have a lot of traffic on the API to test in map stage. And then once we have another working session with them, then we will explore if there's any, first, if our additional, digging into the logs will expose anything on our side, and then also just adjusting settings in map stage and then rerunning the test. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And again, whatever findings that we have, we'll of course report back to this broader group too. And just know if we haven't worked directly with you, it's because we see that you might be having a similar issue to another customer, and where we already have established some, some momentum with that other customer that we're working with to resolve that issue, and then be able to report back to those that are having a similar issue. Okay.
Okay, makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions on that one or comments, anything to share? All right, so the second big, the second area that we're seeing reports of are this intermittent HTML response on the API that returns a big IP logout page error. So, you should be expecting the SOAP response, the SOAP XML response that we're seeing that across multiple systems, multiple APIs, and multiple customers, there's an intermittent return of this HTML response. So across the customers, I think that in the city cases, I think that we've had maybe one example of a full response file, but some of these response files that we're getting aren't full, and they're only showing the beginning of those. So we've reached out to customers to be able to provide us with the full response files so that we can, again, look further on our side before we re-engage with the customer to potentially do some joint testing. So if one of those city cases are yours, I probably responded to it, but if not, and if you're able to please provide a full response file that you're getting from the ISO in those cases, that would be very helpful for us. But we are looking at the one example that we did receive of a full response, but and then we've reached out for those others that are reporting that to also give us what they're seeing on their side. Okay. So I see a question or comment from Deborah about a lot of the big IP messages on ADS and how would we like the city ticket group, just one with lots of dates and examples. That would be great, Deborah. I think that would keep everything organized and help our review be more efficient and focused. We absolutely don't mind if you do different city cases. That just kind of increases the overhead a little bit. So if you want to create one city ticket, that would be helpful. Okay. All right. Any questions or comments on the intermittent HTML response of the big IP logout page? All right. Lisa, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, has anybody been able to replicate this in map stage?
So that's a good question, and that's one of my prompts of information that you can provide to us. But at this time, I'm not aware of any reports of the big IP in map stage right now. But again, if anybody is on the call that has one of those city cases, if you could share that information one way or the other. But at this time, Lisa, per my review, I haven't seen it reported to map stage. But that's one thing that I can work on the city cases to ask specific specifically. So I'll go and respond to those and ask those users if they saw the issue in map stage and if they can replicate it. Okay. All right. Okay. So I just have another comment from Vance Jordan about if F5 support has been contacted. Yes. So our team, as appropriate, will work with the software vendor to further explore. But again, I think that at this time, we want to make sure that we have the appropriate information from our customers and then from our systems in order to be efficient with and effective with our work with F5 support. Okay. But yes, we're in contact with them. Okay. Tony, please go ahead.
I was just curious for the intermittent connection resets. We haven't seen it, but I was wondering if you're able to share if this is across all applications or is it specific to one, so I could zero in on the testing in case I have missed something?
No, that's a great question. And, you know, before I publish this, I can include that as well. But it is multiple systems. So we've seen it reported for DRRS, for OMS, for BAYOP, and BSAP, and I don't want to say cyber yet, but I'll confirm before I update the presentation. But at least for the regular market participants, DRRS, and then for WEIM, BAYOP, and BSAP. And then for, you know, both, we've seen it reported on OMS in an isolated case as well.
And are these on retrieve or submit?
They are both.
Both, okay.
Yep.
Thank you, that's helpful.
Actually, yeah, Tony, let me confirm though, okay? I know definitely on submit. Actually, I know definitely on submit. Let me confirm on retrieve, and then I'll add that to the presentation, okay?
Okay, great, thanks.
Yeah, okay. Thanks for that. That's a good question. Okay. Any other questions or comments on these? Okay. All right. Let me go on to the global rate limiting and acceptable use policy. So I did add to this based on our last conversation a week ago. So this is a clarification here for the global rate limit. You'll see the last bullet in that section that the global rate limit is enforced by namespace. So that includes the web services, which include the applications I listed above, which are BAYOP, BSAP, Sierra, et cetera. And then OASIS is also a namespace that has a global rate limit enforcement, and ADS also is another one that has global rate limit enforced for that. Okay. I'm going to move on to some of the questions that we've had that were raised about global rate limiting acceptable use policy. So we had a city case for clarification on the global rate limit on web services, and I believe we addressed that on last week's call. And in the presentation, this was about web services. So if for that 30-second limitation, if an organization submits or retrieves, has traffic to, 7 different applications, is the understanding that they couldn't have more than, so many transactions within the 30 seconds across all of those applications, and that is correct. And again, I did link to the global rate limit documentation as well as the application-specific AUP documentation in the text specs on the previous slide. So that information is there for reference as well. And then we have an enhancement request. So on the application AUP, most notably for MRIS, CMRI, and DRS that we're introducing as part of the new URLs, we published text specs that do list how we're enforcing that and the key, the AUP key. So one of the suggestions that we got from our customers was a really valuable one, which was to consider including the SCID in the key as well. because there might be multiple SCIDs that, for a user, for an organization. So we are currently reviewing that. We're leaving that city case open as an enhancement request, and then we will share more about that. We'll leave that here and share more once we have additional feedback from our team, including architecture and the business owners. Okay. Any questions or comments on this? All right. So that takes me to the end of our presentation for today. Our next call is Wednesday, February 7th, and I have, after this slide, I do have all of the supporting information. So I want to open it one more time to see if there are questions or comments or any feedback that anybody has today. All right. Okay, you can always, Tanya, please go ahead.
Hi, Trang. Thank you for sharing all the information. Just a real quick, just thinking about in the talk code, you announced that the API cutover is now TBD. Is that or has something to do with the CAISO needs time to resolve those issues that where you list in the no issue list?
Yes, absolutely. Again, I want to emphasize our commitment to making sure that this is a smooth transition for our customers that will not impact your production operations. And due to the, us having those open city cases without a clear resolution yet, we feel it's not appropriate to cause any unnecessary panic by having a date that soon out. Now we're open to keeping that date. If we were able to resolve all those issues and have all of our customers transition, we would be ready. But we don't want to create any unnecessary concern with having a date out while there's still open questions.
Thank you. I really appreciate you taking the time to make sure that issues being addressed before the cutover. Quick question. I think you are the right person. I asked this question. How do you see whether this is going to be interfere our summer release at all? Schedule-wise. And
right.
resource, maybe.
Yeah, so that's a great question. So, I can speak from the ISO side, and then the whole other side of this is the impact to our customers, which, I don't want to speak for them, but I can kind of give you our perspective, is that this URL change does not impact application functionality. So the summer release is based on releasing application functionality for the most part. And so we will continue to release that as expected. And then, so where I can see a potential issue is that if so map stage environment is already cut over to the new infrastructure, and of course we'll have a market simulation there. So, so if there were users that were still not able to successfully connect to the map stage API, that could impact market simulation. But but we've had those URLs available for some time and through previous market simulation already. So hopefully we've worked through all the issues there. Now for production, again, from a functionality perspective, that we'll continue with releasing the functionality for our summer release. And whether it's, customers are using the old URL or the new URL. So that's kind of my perspective on the ISO. We don't anticipate any impact, and then we'll treat the URL API URL cutover separately, so that customers, again, we don't want to cut over before you use the new URLs, but the summer release shouldn't prevent you from cutting over to the new URL. So right. I hope that helps.
Yeah, it does.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, Hugo, please go ahead when you're ready.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Hugo Fretsch. I'm the Executive Director at the ISO, and I'm responsible for the IT infrastructure. architecture and information security here at the organization. So in essence, if something is broken, it's probably on my side of the house here. So I just want to make sure that you guys are here to see who I am, and if you need something, if we're not providing you the needs of your systems, let us know. We embarked on this F5 application delivery controller infrastructure a couple of years ago as part of our enhancing our security and our availability and reliability of our systems. So we understand the effort that it takes to move your systems over. I understand also that this is not just a technology solution, right? Because if it was just purely technology, we could just cut over and that's it. But we know that it's a business solution because we have to take into account the interaction with the application. So I struggle through that in my own house here in terms of making sure that when we deliver something that we include the business to make sure we don't impact the business. And that's the goal here, is that as we continue to roll out this new technology, that we take that into account. So we're doing all we can to meet with you guys directly. We're meeting with the customers, the integrators. I have my technical teams working on one-on-one sessions with different departments and troubleshooting each of the issues that we have at hand. We are in constant contact with F5 support also, so we have separate meetings with them also to try to troubleshoot. But a lot of these are very unique to some of the customers, so we're trying to work through that. But I am available, and if there's any time you have any concerns, Trang and I are meeting weekly on this with our customer care team, so we are available. I'm available if needed at any time. So thank you, and I appreciate your patience in working through this with us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hugo. Well said. And thank you again to everyone who participated through this and provided the feedback and information. Okay. Any other questions or comments or feedback? All right. We look forward to working with you more offline, as well as talking to you again in a week on the same forum. We hope to have some good news by then. And we definitely will share it if we can. Okay, have a great day. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.